Yeah.
Welcome,
Okay.
welcome to the Spirit Soul Series podcast, and we are back finally after a long break. It's back
Yes.
with Supriya Chechi, and it's been a long time, and she's the only guest I've been wanting to get for a very long time. And yeah, so how you been? Tell everybody how you been so far.
And thank you. Very happy to be back. Hare Krishna and Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
It, it's been 3 months when I haven't been able to do any podcast with you, but that's been because so many domestic issues, as I said, and we shifted house
Hmm.
and then we went to COVID, and then my leg treatment for my knee injury had to start. So it's really been 3 long months, and though I've kept in touch with you and on and off, it's not the same as having the podcast going again. And hopefully,
Mm.
Krishna, there's a good Wi-Fi connection here, and I have my own big.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that's it.
I will be okay. So I
Yeah.
suggest just go through a short review, a review this class of chapter 4, because
Mm.
that's where, if you remember,
Yeah.
and class pick up one or two main points again of chapter 4, and then we can move on to chapter 5 in the
Yeah,
following
sure.
class.
Sure.
Yeah, because there's been too long a gap otherwise.
Yeah, yeah, sure, sure.
We move on to chapter 5. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not a problem. Yeah, we can do that. So we're going to like chapter
Four,
four, is
four.
it? Four. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Chapter 4 that we were doing when we broke off the podcast. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Chapter is crucial. It's called transcendental knowledge in the English translation. And it's crucial because if I am asked to summarize it in a way that will be helpful to a lay audience,
So,
that is,
Supriya, just one second. I'll just share my screen to that website where that chapter four is there, so that like
yeah,
we can also get to know exactly which part of the thing you're saying, no? So, like,
okay.
if I share the screen, can you see this?
It
This
says
one.
a start sharing, sharing. Yeah, this is the one,
This
transcendental
is the one.
knowledge.
Okay. 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 Hmm.
Right, right. Yeah. So, shall I continue speaking or
Yeah,
you
yeah.
want to say?
No, 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 no. You go ahead, go ahead, go ahead. I just wanted to put this actually. That's all.
Okay, so basically, this chapter 4, transcendental knowledge, the umbrella principle, if you like, the foundational principle of this whole thing is he is giving knowledge, which is transcendental. What is that knowledge? It's about himself. By himself, I mean Krishna. What is in simple terms, what is the special knowledge that he is giving in this chapter? He is going to explain why he comes and when he comes, as in the form of in various incarnations. So that's like a umbrella principle of this whole chapter.
Hmm.
You have to go to here. If you go, oh, I don't have the facility to go down. I can't scroll what it's showing, but
Okay. Just
basically
tell me which text or something you're talking about.
go on to verses here 7 and 8.
7, 8. Okay. This one. Whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious practice or descent of Bharat and a predominant rise of religion, at the time I descend myself. That is seventh one. The eighth one is to deliver the pious and to annihilate the miscreants as well as to re-establish the principles of religion. I myself appear millennium after millennium.
So this is the when and why of his appearances. And
Hmm.
that is really the transcendental knowledge he is giving us. When does he, when things get really bad? Like he's saying here in verse 7, when there is such a decline in religious practice that unless, and such a predominance of irreligion, that unless he personally comes or comes in, that is, it might even be in the form of his incarnations, he things just get completely out of hand. So that's when he comes. And in the following verse, which is verse 8, he's answering why does he come. He comes basically to do three things. One is, of course, to destroy the miscreants, to save and deliver. Second, to deliver the pious and those who are clinging on with faith in him. And the third one is basically to re-establish the principles of religion that have got lost in the chaos. And a lot of people keep asking that things are already so bad. If you see the state of the world, and we are still so far away from the end of Kali Yuga when the Kalki avatar is supposed to come according to the Bhagavatam. Especially after these 1 or 2 rounds of COVID, people have begun asking these questions. That it's almost, there's so much destruction and unfair justice. But what we should know is that it just is an indicator of how much worse things are going to become as the years progress and Kali Yuga marches on. If already we find it insufferable, imagine if we are to come back next life and the following lifetimes to the same material, miserable world, whichever part we may be born in. It's going to be terrible. It's really going to be horrible. People are about climate change and trying to do their best to rectify it. Young students are speaking out and drawing the attention of leaders. People are talking about water scarcity. Even at a very small, minuscule level, someone who was in Chennai all these years, born and brought up, she's decided to shift to Trivandrum because Chennai has become impossible. Every year it's been flooding last 5 years. And she's an educated lady who was, she's directly below us. She retired from the ONGC. She's had a lot of exposure. She's traveled abroad. She's now soon going to be a grandmother. But she says the reason is this, because in Chennai, there's so much of overbuilding in the heart of the city. Unlike in other cities that grow by building along the outskirts, they spread like this. The Chennaites don't want to go away from what they're familiar with in the heart of the city. So they are just building upwards like this. And with the result that the natural space for rainwater to flow out is all getting sealed up, clogged up and cemented up. So naturally the rain will have severe floods. It's become so miserable, so much loss, so much time to get back on track. So they just quit. They sold what they had and they took one of the flats here. Trivandrum Road not to have that problem because all of the city, Thiruvananthapuram, is up and down. It's slopey roads and ascent and descent, so the water should be able to run down. So if this is the state of things now, imagine by the time of the next avatar, or that is the Kalki avatar,
Yeah.
how
The state of the world would like reach a state of complete, like there would be absolutely no sense of religion at all, or nothing.
Life miserable. Say that you and I are reborn 500 years from now, we are still around. We've been taking rebirth, and it will be utterly miserable. And when you check the Kalki avatar is not due for I don't know how many thousands of years. So although it seems all unrealistic and improbable and impossible, things are going to keep deteriorating. So the point being that we should try and qualify ourselves to not have to come back. We may not be able to do it in one lifetime, but at least we should get started on that path. So Krishna is telling us when he comes, when things get really bad. And why does he come? He comes basically to accomplish these 3 things. So this umbrella foundational principle of this chapter, you can call it an umbrella principle or you can call it a foundational principle. It's crucial. It's this knowledge of, when he comes, why he comes, which means also his various incarnations. And in the following class, we will be looking at least a couple of incarnations, not just the details. Of course, the details are very important, but there are things you can extract from it. The temperament of the devotee, the temperament of the particular incarnation, how like a computer, every detail has been attended to in the form that Krishna takes to answer the particular prayers of the desperate devotee who's in horrible situation, being attacked. The Narasimha avatar is a classic example, but you'll also see this in other avatars. You'll also see it in the Gajendra Moksha Leela. So many details are attended to because it's like Krishna is completely satisfying the heart of the desperate devotee. It's a little bit in a small way we may experience it ourselves. We are desperately looking for some solution. Amma and I often talk of how we got so much help in trying to settle into this flat. Things we were looking for and never found suddenly come our way. And when they come our way, we find even small, just something you're looking up on the internet, say, you need to purchase, you badly need a particular type of light, or you need some facility. And suddenly you find some window, you're just beating your head against the wall, going on looking, browsing, and something comes your way, the purchase comes through, and you're just so happy because then you immediately sense it's like somebody at the other end heard all your chaotic thoughts and your frustration and waited for a right moment to step in and erase all those miseries of yours. So that is at a small level. It may be that I've been searching for non-fatty, sattvic snacks like potato chips. I don't like this stuff called Lay's chips because though they say oil free, it's basically very oily. And then there's a lot of controversy about what grease they use. There's some talk about pig fat and whatnot. But finally, I located a bakery that is attached in Jaipur to the famous Radha Govinda temple, and therefore they call themselves the Govindaji Bakery. And they do all sattvic, all Vaishnava kind of snacks. Govindji, you just have to type. Their delivery is good. What they pack is good. The quality never, price maybe a little more, but I'm just so and then I found a lot of, they have sweets because we kept having a whole lot of guests coming, and you have to have something to offer them. And this arrives and you show them and they're delighted because it's all something new instead of the things they're used to. They used to Malabar halwa and you know what it's like, this wheat halwa and murku, and but this is something totally new. Like this repeatedly in this old venture of shifting house, I found breakthroughs. And particularly when the details are attended to, the details only you will know because you know your situation and you know what you can do and can't do, can afford, can't afford, when the details are attended to. So similarly, this we're talking about a small, mundane, many such situations. When an avatar descends, he is clearly descending for a purpose or a mission. Invariably, he is descending because somebody is in great trouble. Somebody very dear to him or a whole lot of people, so much irreligion and so much harassment is being meted out that he has to come down to the Ram avatar, came down because Ravana really got out of hand. The Narsimha avatar, because Hiranyakashipu was torturing his son Prahlad so much. Eventually, that when that fulfillment of the avatar takes place, so many details are attended to. This is something that we really need to milk out of an incarnation, even if you're able to study only one or two in our next class.
In that
Because
Narasimha story, you know, where Hiranyakashipu is like, they have the two sons, you know, Hiranyakaship and Hiranyakashipu, Hiranyakasha and Hiranyakashipu, and this there is a backstory also on them. The backstory is
yes,
like they were basically gatekeepers at Vaikuntha,
yeah,
and
yeah,
then those four sages, that is the four Kumaras. I think that's it,
yeah,
no?
that's
Sanaka and Sanat Kumara, and I forgot the other two names. So
yeah,
they were actually visiting Vishnu at Vaikuntha, and
yes,
they were stopped at the gates. They were like, they're like 5 years old. These are like celestial beings who are like 5 years old, and they're stopped at
correct,
the gates of that Vaikuntha by these two people, and they get so angry they curse them. And then
right.
Vishnu comes, and then Vishnu tells, like, they explain the situation, and then Vishnu approves that, yeah, this curse is, yeah, I approve of this curse, like, what they've done. If they are gatekeepers of my planet and they're doing this to you, that means they have to have some kind of punishment, something like that. Something has happened.
Correct.
And so, but before the pan, they, like, the thing is that they would have to take births, and they would take births eventually as Hiranyakaship and Hiranyakashipu. And
Right.
they also said that, they said they pleaded with Vishnu and said that, if we accept this curse, and when we are born, we just want one thing, we just want to keep remembering you all the time, throughout the time when we are born till the time we die. We just want to, at least in some way, we want to associate with, even if we are going to be born as like demons or whatever and all stuff, we want to be associated with someone. So like, even in that also, there's like there's a thing, there's a backstory, and that is basically like just a thing. Like, if you don't show, it's like Krishna is more insulted when you insult the devotee. When you
Absolutely.
ins-
Yeah.
so
That's the correct conclusion to draw out of this. That
mm,
he can take insults if you insult him, and he tolerates so much from his atheistic challenges. But
mm,
if his devotees are being harmed in some way, then he can't tolerate it because there is a real bond of love, heart to heart.
mm,
And these are the kind of qualities that, like I said, the form of Krishna as the Supreme Personality, they really kind of touch our heart, even if they don't melt our hardened hearts. every day the news you hear from around you will only harden our heart more and more, because it just almost makes you feel like there's no justice, there is no just God, or if God is great, He is not able to really help those who are suffering. It hardens our heart and we become indifferent and impersonal, and we've seen it all. This is a normal response when some new tragic story comes up, someone known to us affected by COVID or some other terrible disease, some suffering, old age. So these incarnations and the stories that are left behind are very important to keep softening our heart and get us ready to, like as I said, get unstuck from our cycle of repeated birth and death. So yeah, like you said, the incarnations, and like you correctly pointed out, there's a back history. They were Jaya Vijay earlier and they come down. And it's also said that the same Vishnu, when he accepts and confirms or authorizes the cursing done by the four Kumaras, it's also because God is a Rasa Raj, he likes all rasas, and he also likes Virya Ras, or the Ras of fight and bravery. So Vishnu was looking forward to have a proper duel with this Hiranyakashipu. That's also there. Like so many purposes are served by just one decision. So Krishna in this chapter, why he comes, when he comes, and of course the incarnations. That's one thing. Now, separately under this basic principle, crucial verses are there. They are the 13th verse and then the 34th verse. The 13th verse is famous Chatur. You can scroll down. Yeah. All right. You come to the third. Yeah, the 13th verse. According
to the three modes of material nature and the work associated with them, the four divisions of human society are created by me. That is a Varnashram system, right? That I just find that. Yeah.
That one. So it's crucial to understand that this, not in the Varnashram, yes, but the four Varnas, that is Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, he's saying, spelling it out here, it is not really by birth. It is according to guna, the qualities you have, and karma. Karma here means the occupational duties or the work you opt to do, which in turn depends on the qualities you have. Like you enjoy the podcast, someone else likes, I know boys of your age, boys and girls who prefer hiking and going on marathons and climbing. You may also like a bit of it, but it's not a burning passion for you the way it is all used. So it shows a certain nature. You understand? It shows a certain quality. By guna here means the what you have got from the modes of nature. This is a more, all of us are a mixture of the three modes, but this ability to read scripture or this desire to know more and to hear and to understand, that is really coming from Sattva Guna. Whereas those who instead opt to do marathons and to accomplish, I have a cousin like that. He's somewhere between you and me age-wise. He's based in Mumbai. He's a journalist, but now he has his own blog, but it's all the time, all he's doing is facilitating marathons, reporting marathons, running, accomplishing, covering. So that's really not coming from Sattva Guna, because he's doing harm to his body. His knees have gone, but he won't give up. He won't listen to advice. And it's Rajo. It's predominantly Rajas or Rajo Guna. So according to these three modes, exactly as it's spelled out, Sattva, Rajo, and Tamo, you have a certain nature. And as you grow up, you get drawn to certain activities and professions. Often nowadays, profession we adjust because we don't necessarily get to do a profession. It doesn't work out like that our heart is fully in. It's a little difficult to be able to come to that balance, but you are drawn to activities according to the guna, the quality you have. So then what you do, the primary interest, if you like, and how you follow it up by engaging in that interest, that's karma, occupational duty. So he's saying that determines your varna. The varna basically here means whether you're Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. Now, Brahmin, actually, I will send you a link. I came across a lecture I'm yet to listen to, which is Chaitanya Charan Prabhu of the Pune ISKCON temple, and of that spiritual scientist, his website. He's being interviewed by a young ISKCON lady. And I just caught sight of the title. I've stored it up to be able to listen to it. It's about how the distortion of the caste system. And what
I've seen that. The one, he gives a talk in the temple at the Bhakti Center about this, and he said that like how in today's world, like in previously, like the idea of the caste system was created to, it was created to basically assign duties based on the nature of that person, like based on
Right.
the just the like just how that person emanating, the nature of that person that emanates it. But it was
Yeah.
never intended to be set in stone. Like it was never like, just because you are born in a family of, like, say, a Brahmin, that doesn't mean
Right.
that you're going, that you have to, you can also be a Brahmin. Like if you show the qualities of a Shudra, then you can be a Shudra also. But if a Shudra shows the qualities of a Brahmin, then he can be a Brahmin also. So it was supposed to be like that. And how it was changed in Indian society, there was one interesting question somebody had asked him in that. He was talking to like basically a group of like American people there, and one lady
Okay.
there asked him, like, they were saying that, how like, they were saying that, well, what is the benefits of the varnashram system? If you imagine, if if we implement that in America, I get it might help in some way. So he was very quick to say, like, you don't know the amount of the bad things that it's done in society here. That's like the kind of just the amount of, like, you don't know what you're stepping into. You think that the system might help in some way, but you're not really sure exactly as to, like, how the if you don't recognize what problems it can create. And like, so he was like, because there is this, I guess, people are trying to create the varnashram system in the West. People are trying to do something in that sense, but I don't. But people are like, because they think that the system itself is like, there is some good in that system, but eventually even that also can get corrupted, like what in a sense what has happened in India in many sense.
Explained it very well. And what your explanation for this verse is really good, and it's part of the work, the harmful work that the age of Kali does. It's so distorted and so exploitative now. Every single day you open the newspaper, you see horrific crimes being done just to exploit the lower caste and take advantage of, and so on. So nobody is even interested in the original fundamental system that was actually given by Krishna himself, as described in the Bhagavad Gita. It's so lost. It's just so totally lost. But those of us who have given a little higher intelligence to see it and read it and understand it and apply it, it starts making a lot of sense. You start seeing, and it also, like you correctly said, it's not set in stone. Someone of a lower mentality or of a more harmful mentality, harmful to himself or herself, that's what I mean, is given the option through reading and through proper practice and adjusting lifestyle and choice and so on, one's choices, to come to a sattva gun where life is more peaceful and satisfying and full of knowledge, and always you know what you're doing and why you're doing it. So there's a channel through which this change is possible. Not only that it's not set in stone, it is, there is mobility. There is mobility within the caste system. It's not just that just because you're born the son of a Brahmana, son of, automatically you are. That's one misconception. It's not like that at all. It's not a given, and it
There's
is
there's
not like.
a there's a story of that actually in the Bhagavatam. I forgot the name of the king, but if I tell you the story a little bit, maybe you might know the name. Where
I might.
this person is like, he's a king. He leaves his family. Then he's born as, like, he gets affectionate for a deer, and then because
Ah,
of what is the name of that king?
that is Ambarish Maharaj.
Ambarish Okay, okay. So in that story, like, he's like, when he's born as a deer in the next life, then he understands the mistake that he did in the previous life of having been so affectionate to the deer, and then having been born as a deer, and then he attains that spiritual state. But then because he was born as a deer, he has to again now be born as a human. And but when he's born, he's already born with full transcendence of Krishna consciousness. Like, he's just born like that, but he's born in a
Oh,
Brahmin family. He's born in a Brahmin family, and his what do you say? His father, or who's a Brahmin, is trying to tell him, like, do certain things. Yeah, do this, do that. But he's like, I'm already Krishna conscious. I don't need to, like, I'm not. I don't need all this. Like, I just need to chant Krishna's name every day, and I just need to, like, think of him, and that's it. There's nothing more that I need to do. And
yeah.
yeah, so.
what he does is, because he's already realized the serious mistakes he made in a previous life, even as the deer was in a part of a forest where there was a hermitage, and the deer constantly hearing, being able to see the kind of arrangement that the Lord made. This deer, who was earlier a kind of great king and so on, because of going into the forest to practice renunciation, then he makes the mistake of getting very attached to this fawn, a baby deer actually, because the mother is leaping across the river and the mother dies, being chased by a tiger, and then gives birth to this fawn who has no mother. So he gets completely trapped by this affection and starts to think the whole world revolves around this. That is the nature of the material energy. It can bewilder and confuse you. But then he has to take a birth as a deer. But that deer is born in a hermitage, and not only that, just see the detail that the Lord has arranged. Though in the body of a deer, he is given the intelligence and the ability to understand
what he did in his last life also. Yeah.
He can understand the dialogue and exchange between the saints.
Okay.
He can talk that human language, but he is given the full intelligence and the ability to, because you see, when a person dies, the soul gets into the next body. The mind intelligence or seeker go along with it. These are subtle abstract concepts, and you don't actually see anything going. But the mind intelligence and false ego. The mind is a repository of all memories from the past. Now, most of the time, our memory is blocked out or blackened out, because we won't be able to function if we remember everything that happened in the past. But it's up to the Lord to jog our memory and revive certain things. So in the case of this deer, when it was born as taking another life as a deer, he was forced to he could understand the conversation, and he kept getting more and more enlightened. And then when he is born, what happens is he is born in a princely, like you said, Brahminical culture, in order to not get trapped by the material obligations and expectations that you knew his father will place on him. He pretends he's a dumb idiot. So people he just play acts. So he's given the role of one of the carriers of the palanquin.
That palanquin of that king, that and then like the king says like, I mean he doesn't like, he's like the other carriers are like moving fast and he's going slowly, but he's going slowly because he wants to avoid like even an ant that's there, like every 3 meters he'll stop to avoid an ant avoid like stepping on an ant. So then like the king shouts at him and then tells him, what are you doing, like and then literally abuses him and says that I will kill you and stuff like that. So then he very calmly and quietly says that, like, who are you? Like, you may say all this, but you're just like, in full, you don't understand that you're completely blinded by your own material desires. And I basically there's an entire, like, I think 3 chapters like that, where they have a discussion.
Section.
Yeah. Where they discuss that, yeah.
You've been reading the Bhagavatam regularly, so that's very good. That's why you're able to come immediately into this point. So this connection across births, it means that there's also mobility to improve our own chances to get out of the cycle of birth and death. Constantly, the Lord in the heart of the super soul and externally a guru are working in unison to help you make it to once you get started on the path. So this chapter 4, here when he's talking of the varnas and the ashrams, one is, it's like you said correctly, it's not set in stone, it's not a given, it's not by birthright, it's not like you automatically are Brahmin. If you're the son of a Brahmin, you have to show the guna or the qualities as you grow. And if you have wise elders, they will direct you towards that kind of occupational duty so that you can further develop those qualities. Like I said, we are living in a very confused age, and often this is not possible. People are unhappily situated in the professions that they've selected. Livelihood is important, family is dependent on them, so it's a big mess. But this knowledge is available for those of us who feel we can put it to use in our own limited ways. Now, why then, you ask, why this categories into, Brahman, Kshatriya? Each one has a natural set of qualities which comes out in later chapters, even in the 18th chapter, the final chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Each one of them has a proclivity for a certain activity, a certain nature. So why these categories? There again, you have to go back as a reference point. You have to take the umbrella principle of how the Lord descends, when he descends, why he descends. Say you're suddenly in front of a whole pile of vegetables all mixed up. There are tomatoes and there is hindi or vendakya, the lady finger, there is brinjal, there is the hardy potato, there is tender coriander leaf, all there's one big, some truck has come and put the whole lot in front of you, and there is danger of it all rotting if it lies together. What is the practical step you take? You would first separate into categories. The tenderest or the most likely to fragile is the coriander leaves. Little bit of water, it starts rotting. The hardiest is the potato, maybe even the cauliflower. In between are the tomatoes that if weight is put on them, they get squashed to pulp. So this division into categories is vital, even if the Lord has to play his role as someone who comes back to claim the suffering devotees and take them back. This vital. It's not that he doesn't know what we are like, but for the functioning of society in such a way that makes it possible for the Lord and his representative to step in and claim a certain type and give them certain opportunities that befits their nature and the level of advancement they brought from a previous life. That is why these categories. Now, even when we go and stand in front of a guru, provided he is a properly enlightened guru and properly empowered, that guru will, in a little bit of conversation, immediately be able to understand our natural inclination. And he or she will give us, suggest a service that is like a devotional service, or just suggestions about what job we should take, depending on that nature. Because they have something to refer to. There are these yardsticks. Someone who's super active, that is a mode of passion, better to give them activities that require the mode of passion, where it can be put to nice use. Someone who's silent, detached, restrained, seeking knowledge, self-controlled, not so crazily active, that is really mode of goodness. Better to direct them into activities. So this is vital for the smooth functioning of society. Now, as to your point that you are repeating from Chaitanya Charan Prabhu's class lecture, it's how to reintroduce Varnashram. It's a long process and it doesn't always work in all societies. It ought to.
Because inevitably, like, the human nature is to like see themselves in a higher state or in a higher position. Like there's like a like when you say that, say like this quality is better than this quality and this quality is better than this quality, immediately people don't want to be associated with the bad quality. Even though like they may be doing that bad quality, they don't want to be associated with that bad quality. They want to know the name. So it's like, if you may say that, like, oh, in India, like say in India it didn't work, but in America it might work. That is a bit too much, because I'm like, I don't like, in anywhere you put something like that, there will be issues. There'll be people who will say like, why should I be called this? Why should this happen? And stuff like that. But like, I would say like the intention was not was very pure of setting up the Varnashram system, but it didn't work. I feel, I don't think it worked in the end. Like ultimately, I don't think it did anything. Like, I mean, there are some good things.
No, that's because of the in Kali Yuga, everything is badly messed up, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's why it appears not to be now at all. But where societies and communities are, and it is half of the mission of ISKCON that's been left undone, that it has to be maybe in small pockets, so that at least it's easier in farm communities like this farm community that is there in Hungary. That huge and successful farm community under Shivaram Swami. I forget the name now. What is it called? Anyway, it's a proper farm community. They're living close to nature. They are off the grid. They do their farming. They do self-sustainable farming. And more than that, in that kind of natural environment without artificial pressures, it's a little easier to detect the qualities of people. Here, everything is so utterly confused. Like from the time a child is a little grown up, he or she is pushed by parental expectations, media intervention to go in a particular direction as far as selecting a profession, training goes.
So like,
the teachers are
when they like I was they describe the four cycles, no, like the Satya Yuga, the Treta Yuga, the Dwapar Yuga, and the Kali Yuga. So when they are describing the Satya Yuga, they say that it's an age where people are literally living the concepts of what, like, say, the Bhagavad Gita, the Srimad Bhagavatam describe. They're literally living in that. They're living, all the beings are like in that state, basically. Then you develop, then they say like when you get from that to the Treta Yuga, it's like, like 1/4 or like only 75% capacity of what was in the Satya Yuga. 25% of it is reduced. Like, there is a element of like certain negative things come in picture, and people's heights and the heights of people, the material sort of desires that people have also start increasing a bit. And then as time
Right.
goes on, like people are like, so when even when the things like the Mahabharata is happening, we are there in the Dwapar Yuga. By then, like already 50% of the that world essentially has lost. So they say that when you're in Satya Yuga, you are just in bliss. Like you're supposed to do these these there's a requirement for the age, no, in Satya Yuga. What was it?
What you mean is that what is the devotional service that
Ah,
is
yeah. What, like, the requirement? What are you supposed to do?
no, basically for God realization, everything is perfect.
Ah,
For God
perfect.
realization, yeah, it is perfect. It is meditation. As it goes down, other kind of slightly artificial means. Now, if you say you're going to realize God through meditation, nothing is suitable. Through
Mm.
dhyan, you can't at all. So
So
by
like
the time it is,
Mm. So, like they say that as the age goes, there are different like requirements for you to get enlightened. Like there's different ways to get enlightened. So in the
yeah,
present age, the only way to get enlightened is to chant the Hare Krishna mantra. Is what they say.
in
Yeah.
the previous age, Dwapara Yuga, it was temple worship through
Temple
temples.
worship.
That you nowadays even temple worship is not reliable. And in between, after Satya Yuga comes, yes, yeah, Satya
Treta.
Treta practice like the Satya. Now Treta Yuga, what it was, one of them was sacrifices, the other one was meditation. Both were still possible because everything was done with correct facilities and
Mm.
uncontaminated and undiluted. It's not now. If you try and do sacrifices, nothing is pure. The ingredients you use for the sacrifice, the intention of the sacrifice, especially if it involves animal sacrifice, it's all horrible intention. There is such a passion now for cruelty and for exploitation, so that's all not allowed. That's not the recommended procedure, and now it's just the chanting of the holy name, whichever religion, whichever name of God you take, because that's the simplest. It's not
Mm.
relying on ingredients for the sacrifice, is not relying on the purity of the priest. God alone knows what is his mental state when he's doing things in your name and archanas. He may be a very good person,
There's
but
that
we don't
story
know.
of there's a story of Krishna, no, when he's playing with his friends. He's like a small child. He's playing with his friends, and like Balaram and the other two friends, right? And then
Yeah,
they see these sages like doing these mantras and all that a little bit away, and then
yeah,
so then like they're actually very, all of them are like very like they're awestruck by the sages, like the ability to do these mantras. Krishna, like, and they're all, but at the same time, they're all very hungry. Okay, so
that's
Krishna tells them, like, why don't you go ask those sages if they can give us some food. So they're like, what? Why? Like, then they go, and they're like full belly, like they're very hungry and all stuff, and they go up to the sages, and they ask them, like, they are performing mantras and all that. There's one sage that's saying one mantra. There's another sage that's making sure that what mantra he's saying is correct, and then the different sages that are doing different things. So when these boys ask them for food, they don't even look at the boys. They just like ignore them,
don't.
and so then like those boys come back and say they ignored us and all that stuff. And then Krishna tells him, now you go to the wives of those sages and ask them what, for food and all. Now the wives are like, oh yeah, we'll definitely, yeah, we'll come. We'll all, the whole village comes, and the whole villages of the wives, they come and they say, if it's for Krishna, then we'll come and we'll come and give him food and all. We'll come with his friends and all that stuff. They come there, and then the sages are like, oh, we made such a bad mistake. We didn't realize the what we were doing in this whole
Yeah,
process. So
that's a very good and very relevant story that you're telling. You clearly, gosh, obviously been reading your Bhagavatam very nicely. That's able to come up with appropriate stories for each point. That's very helpful for me.
it's just Krishna at the end of the day.
But yeah, because this is such a telling pastime that they miss, what is the English usage? They miss the wood for the trees or something like that. That
Yeah.
they're busy please the Lord. And when the Lord comes and stands in front of them with a very basic demand, they have no time because they are sticking to their preconceived notion of how they're going to please him. Whereas by comparison, the wives are so straightforward, unqualified to do these great pujas that they just straight away satisfy the Lord. So the question at the end of the day is that who is superior? Obviously, the wives are superior in terms of their ability to please the Supreme Lord, and he's more happy with them than with the Brahmins. So it's again driving home the point that even all this gyan and training as a pujari and all this is at the end of the day, it's not what really counts. The desire to please and the ability to see in a very simple way what is required and to do it, do that service for the Lord. So yes, so now when you're saying that with the Varnashram, we were going back to this particular verse of 4.13, that the situation is so confused that we often don't know whether what our own nature is and how to be situated in a proper service. This links straight away to the other key verse in this chapter, which is 4.34. The 34th, if you scroll and go to the 34th verse.
This one.
That will
Just
be
try.
Prabhupada.
Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively, and render service unto him. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth.
Right. This is why it's imperative to accept a guru and to follow the guru, because the guru, like you yourself said a little earlier, I couldn't cut in at that time. You said that sometimes you think this is a good decision and you do it, but it's not really your nature, and like that people can spiral downward, blunder after blunder. So you need a proper guru and interaction with that guru who can see the potential in you and guide it and tell you when you're wrong, reprimand you, chastise you if it's necessary. But Krishna already does it at the start of the Mahabharata, at the start of the Bhagavad Gita section of the Mahabharata. Krishna is basically calling Arjuna a fool, that you're behaving with all this lamentation for your relatives, and then you're full of tears, your eyes, and your Gandiva bow is, your hand is shaking and you can't hold the Gandiva bow. This is not befitting the kind of input that has gone into you, the birth you've been given, your accomplishment so far as a great warrior born into a Kshatriya clan, one of the Pandavas. So we need someone to tell us what is what to our face, at least from time to time. And we have to have the surrender to take it. It's vital because on the one hand, we have some vague idea what our Varna is to the extent is possible in our confused times. We have a vague idea what our nature and our inclination proclivity is. Then you start going in that direction or start amidst all the other pressures that don't make it possible because you're living in those kind of hostile, unfavorable times. You're reading about Krishna and you read the Bhagavad Gita and so on, but you also need a living person who he need not necessarily be a Diksha Guru. The Diksha people confuse this even within ISKCON. There is a Diksha Guru and there is a Shiksha Guru. A Diksha Guru usually it means that you take formal initiation of Diksha from just one person. If he dies, passes away, no issues, you're still tied to that person. If he falls into some trouble and becomes unacceptable as a guru because of sinful activities, you have a right to reject him. There's a formal procedure. The ISKCON facilitates that. And you select another guru and get reinitiated. This has happened in ISKCON, given the kind of problems that certain gurus ran into in the past and maybe a couple even now. But otherwise, Diksha Guru is only one. Now, Diksha Guru, often people may not necessarily get the Guru of their heart because of circumstantial factors. You join a movement or you become aware of devotional life and you take up devotional life in a certain part of the world where only certain gurus are coming. Okay, in the age of internet, it may be possible to reach out to some guru who impresses you through his classes and you want to be his disciple. It may be possible, but there may also be managerial and administrative blocks that don't always facilitate this. People get fed up of waiting and say, okay, I take from the person who is coming and willing to give me. It is a kind of a thing that the temple arranges. So that's the Diksha Guru, right? I mean, you remain loyal and obedient, but you also need constant Shiksha, counseling and educating. That is, Diksha just means like initiation means that Diksha Guru initiates you into spiritual life. It's not a big deal. People preen around saying, oh, I am a Diksha, I am an initiated devotee. What? It's just the beginning. It gives you a suitable name to empower you and to make you more aware of what he sees you is your potential. If he is really a guru doing his job properly, then he gives you some advice. He is there often if you're in trouble, at least through his relative, to his representatives. But this constant input that comes from somebody, in my experience, is far more valuable. And the Diksha Guru can end up a formality, which you're always grateful for, and you made your vows and you try your best not to break those vows, chanting 16 rounds and so on. But the Shiksha Guru is like a constant source. People, you can have any number of Shiksha Gurus because you may take inspiration from several sources. One or two of those sources you may be able to formalize into a relationship where you are able to make contact, see the person, write to him, her, tell them, open yourself up and tell them so that they can poke around and find the weak areas and warn you. And eventually through a process, some real surrender does take place. And Shiksha Guru can not be like that. It can just be that someone has read the books of, heard the lectures of, and considers that particular Guru to be a Shiksha source. That can also be the case. If someone is dead and gone, some great Guru is already dead and gone, but the books or the classes are still so inspiring that a devotee may say, this is going to be a regular source of Shiksha for me. I have my Diksha Guru. I even have another couple of Shiksha Gurus, but this is also going to be a new source of Shiksha. It's very important that a person, because if any change has to come inside us, you have to have someone with whom you can discuss in some limited way and keep checking whether what you're doing is right. And it really takes often a Shiksha Guru to understand where you fit in the Varna system and to draw out that potential. Then you have to do a lot of work on yourself. That's also there. It doesn't happen like this. Like you correctly said, we have a false idea of always, it's human nature. We think we are superior to what we actually are. It's just human nature. So someone has to bring down a peg or two, and someone has to give replies that see through our bluff. Often when we write a letter, we put on our best image and write as if we are some perfect devotee getting up in the morning, but he or she should be able to see through all our bluff and say, I sense there is a lazy streak in you. I'm sure you're not being able to do your chanting properly. I'm sure you're not able to tell me frankly, and then I can help you. I think that kind of honesty goes a long way. But most of the time, people are very delicately and don't want to annoy the other person, and the Guru and the disciple are just playing this game. And so it's all very important. Actually, Prabhupada said something which is, he says, each one flies his own plane or her own plane. You decide whether you want to fly low or if you want to really fly, the sky is the limit. Meaning in how far you want to go in this lifetime and how much realization and understanding you want to squeeze out of the opportunities that God is arranging for you. So 4.13 verse is these 4 categories of the Varnas. How do we decide which Varna we are in? Do we figure it out ourselves? No, that's where the 4.34 comes in. The 34th verse, which is the Guru verse. This one
Get a
about
spiritual master, because he'll be able to tell you exactly what is your nature and where you lie in that Varna system.
And he will be able to engage you appropriately. And there also in that, I have seen a lot of misconceptions even within my ISKCON, which is generally if a person is of one type, you engage the person in that type of suitable service. Now, it may be that the Guru actually wants to make you go a little higher and gives you something that is not to your taste. This is true. It forces us to push our boundaries forward and to tolerate something that we don't like. But that's okay for a short period. Now, some people swing to the other extreme, the Guru and the disciple, and are constantly in a situation they're doing something they don't like. This is absurd because it will kill your taste and your surrender. So people have come to me saying that I don't have good health at all. I am this age, but my Guru tells me I must keep doing book distribution. So either there is some communication gap between the Guru and the disciple, and either the Guru just wants them to use the modern facilities, you sit in a seat and sell the books. But the disciple has somehow got it into his or her head that physically they have to go door to door or to go to shops and malls and distribute this knowledge. Distribute books is really means disseminate this knowledge, and they are not able to do it. So communication, honesty, it's a struggle. There is no doubt about it. It's never been easy. Then there will be other people interfering with their misconceptions, and then the slightest sincerity, sometimes sincerity is misunderstood, and the people will immediately label you as doing some very great offense if you're sincere, or it's all
I
very difficult.
I think now I think that book distribution thing, I've heard actually a lot of these podcasts where people like from ISKCON, these people talk about book distribution. It's obviously definitely a very important thing, but I think like it was necessary in like maybe during the time after Prabhupada and all that. Now I feel like because of social media, I don't know if that is that much. I don't know if book distribution is that much important now because of social media. Now
That's
you can advertise the whole thing uh, a bit better now, and then you can like you can just say like like after every video you can say that buy this book, and you can get in like at least 10,000 people or so in one time
yes,
and things like that. So
you're right. But why book distribution even now has prime place? The kind of stories you hear, the experiences of
that okay, yeah.
how Krishna suddenly works in that situation and does miraculous things. That what they call the nectar of book distribution. There's a whole I think it is Vijay Das, the biggest book distributor on ISKCON, a Western devotee who is constantly sending out stories. The nectar, why it's called nectar is because amazing miraculous experiences. People who don't have the courage to open their mouth are out on the first day. Some guy who they didn't think at all that he or she will be interested comes and says, you look like somebody from the Hare Krishna. I once was offered a book and never got it. Can you? The person opens his, oh, I'll take the whole lot. Things that it's obviously the super soul in that other person guiding them to do things that they didn't really think
Hmm.
through. But extraordinary stories, that is what even today draws old timer, old fashioned type mentality, old fashioned in a positive way, people back to the service of book distribution.
This
Because
is it free? Like if you're doing book distribution, is it free or do you have to pay money? The people have to pay money for that.
no, it depends. You mean the book itself, is it
Book
free
itself.
or
Yeah, yeah.
one is that you pay for the book and you take it, because otherwise if you just give away the book, who's going to pay for the book? Two,
Hmm.
you take someone who's not very favorable, pay some small donation. Supposing a book costs 50 and the person says, I will give you 10. Okay, take the book, pay only 10 rupees. Third is someone else already sponsors a whole set of books and says, just go and give them away. Then this is also common, because there are people who can't get out of their houses, but they have the money to spare, and they say, okay, I will sponsor 100 Bhagavad Gitas. Here is my check or cash. So you
Hmm.
go take that and collect the. Then the issue is to get someone to take it. Mostly they will say, oh, we already have Bhagavad Gita. We already have the ISKCON Bhagavad Gita. Or I'm not interested in this. What is it about? I'm not interested at all. So then it reduces the work to just convincing the person to take the book. But these books with this transcendental knowledge, that is the title of this chapter, chapter 4, but basically the whole Bhagavad Gita is giving this transcendental knowledge. It's is said to have sat on bookshelves in families for 10, 12 years and then exploded like a bomb and converted the whole family. Converted meaning awakened the whole family. It
Hmm.
just sat there, that bomb for 10, 12 years. I've heard stories of ladies who joined ISKCON around the time I joined. And she said she was working for Maruti Motors because that's their family business. And she was a young lady. And by the time she joined, she was about 50 or 48 or something. But when she was around 30, 35, she remembers in her father's office, Western devotees wearing saffron, ISKCON members coming in because what is that called? This Padayatra. Lokanath Swami is famous for the Padayatra, the cows and the bullocks, just to attract people's attention. They travel all over India, and where they go, they also disseminate this knowledge. So they stopped the bullock cart somewhere on Palayam Road or something, and they in Trivandrum and went into this office. And I think nobody was interested, or they were embarrassed, and they were looking down. This lady, I think she said, "How much is it? I'll just get money from the account section and give it to you." And she thinks she was the only one who took it. She kept it on her. She said it just sat there and they were not interested. And out of the blue, her brother went to Pune to take some professional training and got interested in ISKCON. He came back and said, Chechi, where is that book? The brother eventually never followed it up. But this sister, Anusuya Udayan, she joined, or I mean, she got terribly interested. The whole thing appealed to her. Her husband got interested. Her husband, who was initially a little hostile, loved to get into the kitchen and cook. And she said he comes from a conservative Iowa background. Men don't get into the kitchen and cook, but he just liked that service so much. And he did that for several years. The two daughters. One of them is married. Again, the daughter also said, I would prefer an ISKCON member. She is in Dubai. Second one is yet to be married, pursuing some big course in Singapore. Then this man, the husband, got cancer and he suffered a lot before he passed away. But all through what saw the family was, I think, just their faith or their some sight of a higher goal. So these books, even if at the time of the book sale or the book giving, they are not, the recipient is not really favorable. They are set to sit there like bombs and just explode and cut through all the ignorance and delusion and complete blind lives that most of us are living or were living until we became aware of better things. That's why distribution has such a huge role. Nowadays, as you said, through media, it can be distributed. There's no doubt about it. So this guru, coming back to the guru, it's very important that you get a person who correctly guides you. And it's not necessary that that's another misconception, not necessary that you always have to be very closely moving with the guru. If it's possible, that's nice. You can observe the person, learn a lot of things, get personal training, but often it's not possible. In my case, my Shiksha Guru, it all worked out because I was asked to start teaching the Bhagavad Gita and I was still new. And I was told that they would put me in touch with someone based in Russia, an American, who had lived in India and lived all over the world in his Grihastha years. And now he was a sannyasi. So they put me through email. And for some 5-6 years, I got a lot of valuable advice. Never met him even once. Then he wrote and said he's coming to spend a whole month of Kartik in Govardhan with some 20 Russian devotees. Can I make myself useful by also going and staying there? But basically running errands, going to the shop, doing the bazaar shopping, because I spoke Hindi, arranging auto rickshaws, and basically being part of the group. So that is the first time I got to see him. And he invited me for his Vyasa Puja the next year, and I went to Russia. And that was the year he passed away, because he was already suffering from a terrible, this particular disease of the liver, which. What is this? The
Not sure.
see, not cancer. It was not cancer, but he was just 55 when he passed away.
Okay.
It is something to do with the liver failure. It's I'm not getting it right away. My head has been so full of all these mundane things running around and selecting that some names, these kind of facts are not coming back. But
liver disease? Is it liver disease?
No, but there is something starting with H and there is B in it, and then there is
hepatitis A. This one, yeah.
Hepatitis usually jaundice, but I think, do I mean hepatitis? Yeah, maybe hepatitis. There is A and B. This was the critical and the most, the dangerous, serious one. Hep C. We used to call it hepatitis C. I think is the worst of the lot. But that was diagnosed with, and he took it calmly because he had actually done a lot to build up the Bhagavad Gita teaching and studying, and he had a lot of fulfillment from his life, and he took chemotherapy. And people normally suffer with chemotherapy, but in his case, because he was free of all other obligations, managerial and other, while he was suffering, he just increased the number of rounds he was chanting. But he gave me so much advice, despite all my indiscipline and my harsh, when I first went to him for advice, my concern and my nature of flaring up fast and everything that you would connect with Rajogun, with Rajas, he and being easily provoked, overreaction, too intense reactions to everything. He set all that aside and he said, you basically have the ability to try to develop Brahmanical qualities. So you should remain a teacher and you should facilitate others to become teachers. So this came as something out of the blue for me. But yes, I was doing some teaching, but I didn't really see myself in that role. I thought I was the type who likes to rush around and solve problems and fix things, and which is there. But eventually, after so many years, we are talking, he passed away in 2010, and my connection with him started in 2005, and now we are in 2022. But he is so true and so correct, because there's nothing I like more than explaining something to a person so that they understand it properly. And it doesn't have to be the Gita. That's the interesting thing. It may just be some other issue. I come into my element if they are willing to write email after email so that their understanding of that issue is correct and not flawed. It may be a purchase of a television. It may be a trip they are planning. You understand? And this comes through in my friends group, the BNR Railway Children's Group, which they are not into. I'm not sharing anything spiritual on that. So he could see me before I could see myself. And because he expressed this, I've never really got away. I'm realizing it more and more how true it was. The other crucial, and it may seem a very simplistic thing that he would recommend, is just be yourself, because nobody else can do that for you. So be yourself will mean
That's a very difficult thing to do, actually, because it's very easy to say that, but very difficult to do. Very difficult to do that.
What it means I've seen is, like even now with dealings with maids and domestic issues, they sometimes wonder why this Chechi suddenly she's flaring up for something small. But now it has come to an understanding an equation where they don't get upset if I flare up, because within 5 minutes later they see that I am back on track. They just take it that I'm under so much pressure and tension, solving so many issues, and I have an old mother dependent on me. So they don't mind. So this is part of being yourself. Of course, you can misuse that advice, and be yourself can mean you just do whatever you like, even if it inconveniences others. That's not true. I think really being yourself means that you are in touch with yourself, you behave according to your nature, and you take the trouble to make others understand, not to be hurt or affected. That way you build relationships. You explain, this is why I flared up, this is the reason, please listen to what I'm saying. It's a very important point. And this being yourself, as he says, we all suffer because we are not, firstly, society doesn't allow us to be ourselves. Then we have so many questions. There are so many interests at stake. You may lose a job, you may lose your popularity, you may lose support. How can we be ourselves? It's true. It's like a very tough thing. But this is something would hammer home. And he says so much confusion has come. I mean, he was unconventional in that sense. He gave in his little book called Unspoken Obstacles on the Path to Bhakti. It's available for free, like a PDF file. You just type Purna Chandra Das. Purna Chandra, full moon was his name. He was a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. And you type Unspoken Obstacles on the Path to Bhakti. This is a little book, his first and major book. But it's a seminal work, because he talks of things that people are not willing to talk about. And he talks of how these actually hinder and obstruct us the path to bhakti. So what it means is I can even send you a link, because I even have a copy, but I think now I have only one copy, a hard copy.
This one?
This is the one. It's just flashing unspoken obstacles on the This is the one.
Okay.
Yeah. Get through the first 2-3 pages that are a little technical, and after that he gets going with his lifelong experience. And he gives simple examples, where we cause such chaos in the life of a devotee because we don't allow them to be themselves. He's really trying to talk out to people like who's temple presidents. He gives one example which may be considered quite unconventional, which is, it's often the case that a young lady joins, she's initiated, she's a great devotee, then the issue comes, she has to be married. So the temple president, who is in a position, he's probably himself a grihastha with children, he raises a subject and says, what are your views? I think you should be married because you're getting on in years. So she says, yes, I'm willing. And then he comes up with some suggestion, okay, of some other devotee. And she says instinctively, I don't think that will work for me. I know the person you're talking about. I don't think he will be able to appreciate my type at all. But what about that other one of the other two may? So the temple president thinks he has to assert himself and just bashes what he says, she says, and just poo-poos it and says, no, 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 you don't know what's best for you, and so on. And then she says, okay, you may know better. I am willing to go along. And then follows a completely disastrous marriage, because nobody listened to what that person was saying. She was trying to be herself. She showed the courage to honestly say, this is why I feel it won't work with the person you're suggesting. Temple president was so busy being something that he is not, just being some kind of all powerful, all noble, that he just messed up her life. Then from the confusion of trying to get out of that marriage comes usually doubts about the process. Does it really work? Is it really correct to submit to the temple authority? So many doubts. So then this Purnachandra Swami spent a lot of his years. This book will give him as Purnachandra Das, because this book was written when he was not yet a sannyasi. When he was teaching in the Bhaktivedanta Manor in London, he was a Bhagavad Gita Bhakti Shastri teacher there. He lived in Hong Kong, he lived in Thailand, he lived in all kinds of places. He was a good musician. He used to sing kirtan and do modern music. And his brother is that famous American actor. His name was Paul, but their surname is Italian, because there's some Italian blood. The brother was some, I'll try and trace all this kind of background facts for you. He was himself married to a lady from Southeast Asia. I met her once, no children. So anyway, so as a sannyasi, and he says that's a classic example that the poor girl was just trying to be herself and showed the courage to speak up. But it was completely squashed by someone who was not being himself. When we are finally ourselves, we actually listen a little carefully to what people say. When we are not yet ourselves, we are insecure and putting on a kind of facade, and we just straight away crush. We don't even listen to what the other person is saying. And he's saying not just miscommunication, but serious obstacles come on the path to bhakti by these kind of glitches, which temple authority should think. They should do reflection. They should look inwards and think about all this. So that's why the book is called Unspoken Obstacles on the Path to Bhakti. Things that people don't like to talk about. What are the normally talked about obstacles? Laziness, not able to get up in the morning, not able to chant our rounds, taste for food that may be not devotee food, drinks, smoking, weakness for women. These are the obvious obstacles. But there are unspoken obstacles at a subtle level, which people, you think someone is going along very nicely externally, and suddenly you hear he just got fed up and left everything. Why is this happening? Because he was obviously facing issues that nobody wanted to touch. So this person was that kind of a rare guru. He was, I won't even say he's that well known in ISKCON, because that was not his profile. He didn't have a huge following. He, he died when he was 55. He felt he joined when he was 19 or 20, so that God had been fair to him and given him enough lifespan. So going back to this verse 34, the type of guru, and you are able, that also Krishna has to arrange. He will reciprocate with the desire of your heart. The saying, you want a teacher, you will get a teacher. But if what you really want is a cheater, he will arrange a cheater. Yeah, this is a fact. So many people think they've got something great, but that person is just cheating them. He's just not helping them get anywhere. So this is a really rich transcendental knowledge. And this chapter 4, like we said, there is to conclude what the way this chapter goes, transcendental knowledge. Basically, he is giving Krishna knowledge about himself and his appearances, why he comes, when he comes, and then there's something about different types of incarnations, which we can touch only in our next class. There is the Leela avatars, that is come to Rupa. There is so many others, Yuga avatars, and so on, that we will touch in to some extent next class. Then of course, you come to this 13th verse, which is about the Varnas. Why is it essential for society to be sorted out into 4 types of categories? Does it really work today? What is the sense? Has it really worked over a long time? What are the advantages that we discuss? Is like having a whole lot of vegetables and so on that you need to sort out according to their And then comes that, but how you can't go do all this on your own, not even if Krishna has descended. Naturally, Krishna can't be standing in front of us every minute, every century. So then he sends his representatives, which is also the Guru. And then the types of Guru. There is the Diksha Guru, and there are also many Shiksha Gurus. That is really the connection of the heart, the Shiksha Guru, that your type, if you can find. That's one. Then finally, the conclusion, the concluding verses of this chapter are talking of how this transcendental knowledge is like a boat that anybody can get on to, irrespective of Varna. This is another discussion of our modern times. It's not as if the lower, so-called lower Varnas are to be blocked off from entering a temple or from getting access to this knowledge or getting a guru. It's not right at all. In fact, the famous Ramanujacharya is supposed to have taken a low caste guru. Do you know that?
Oh, I
The
didn't know that.
second,
I didn't know that.
yeah, the
Oh.
second, he was a very independent minded individual, the great personality Ramanujacharya. There was the first guru and there was the second guru. And the second guru, he shocked everyone because he was himself a Brahmin, but he took a low caste guru. He was just so impressed by the guru. Then he shocked everyone even more because the guru gave him a particular mantra which is for his salvation. Their system is different. It is not one common Hare Krishna Maha mantra. Each person individually is given a guru. You are not supposed to reveal to anyone. What did Ramanujacharya do? He went up to the top floor of the famous temple. I don't know if it was a Srirangam temple or some other smaller temple. I have to check my facts. And promptly blared out this mantra. So he shocked even the guru. And his argument was, if I can benefit from this, why should others be blocked from benefiting from? In this way, he overturned a cardinal rule. So there is room for the independent mindedness and the high spiritedness of individual disciples. It is not like that you have to be some kind of tame dud who just goes your head and is beaten. That is not a proper understanding of a disciple and guru relationship at all. Of course, you and I are not Ramanujacharyas, and submission and submissiveness is very, very important. But it's not like you can't show your nature and be a little spirited and just say, I like this and I don't like this. Or you can't say, I don't understand why you're asking me to do this. I'm just not able to. It's not that you have to always, your lips are sealed and you constantly keep nodding your head. It is not like that at all. It is a relationship. There are two people involved. There is going to be some life and blood in it. There has to be, if it is meaningful, like
Yeah,
any
like
other relationship.
if you can't ask doubts or if you feel like you're a little bit unsure of what you're asking and all that, then you probably also never learn at the same time, no? What about stuff.
Because then you see that's part of the kind of, but of course there is a proper etiquette to be followed, and that etiquette reminder is often stressed too much, but maybe it's correct. In our
Hmm.
confused time, we all need to learn etiquette because we just don't have that in our samskar, and everything goes. That's the mood nowadays.
I think
So maybe
nowadays people are trying to figure out okay, like people are trying to compete with one another. Like like okay, who's gonna who wants to talk more, who wants to talk less. Like I see that everywhere. Like at work when I'm working also, whoever if you're talking to people in general, no, everybody wants to put their ideas out and show that their idea is best, and this
best.
other person and the other person's idea is not that good. And it's like everybody's like a marketer, like a salesperson in one sense.
But that is coming from Kanan. That is basically coming from that mode of passion. That is the
Passion, huh?
dominant mode. It just pushes over and ever. This is a classic symptom of a person in the mode of passion. And we are living in times where if you don't work like that, you won't succeed. There's very little room for a person trying to work in Sattva Guna because that the society is not even familiar with what Sattva Guna is. That was all left behind in Satya Yuga. You see? So this chapter concludes with this glorification of this transcendental knowledge. One is it's like a boat. Anybody who gets onto it, even the worst type of sinner and the worst type of thief, can cross over the ocean of nescience and cross over to there. And nobody is blocked off. It's not like someone from a lower varna is blocked off. That's not right. The other thing is that it says this transcendental knowledge is so sublime that one who experiences it within himself or herself then loses the taste for everything else. What really, people ask, what really is meant by this? Does it, in the ultimate sense, it means You experience Krishna within yourself. Now, I don't know in which lifetime you are going to get there, but it at a lower level, it also means that the more you're able to bring discipline to your thoughts and your habits and your behavior, which is the hardest, your responses, internally, there is a sense of great satisfaction that everything is very nicely understood and sorted out within yourself. That when they say this knowledge is so sublime, where is it coming from? Because we are dipping in and drinking more and more into the Shastric scriptural knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita and the Bhagavatam. That is what is feeding our insights and making everything healthy. You know, you like to take a kashayam or a potion in Ayurveda, it may taste bitter, but eventually the digestive and everything falls into place and starts functioning nicely. Your bowel movements are regulated, you sleep just enough, you don't feel lethargic, so you feel good, you feel so satisfied. In a similar way, on a mental, emotional, and spiritual level, this drinking and eating from these sources makes everything very clear inside. Such a person is then so well situated that, like they said, they're tasting the sublime knowledge. They're not baffled or flummoxed or confused in any situation, if at all only temporarily. Okay, so we'll stop with this because it's 1
Yeah.
o'clock. After COVID, my staff has not come back fully. So we started at 11:30 and on to one. That's not
That's
bad.
fine. That's fine. Yeah, it's fine.
So next Thursday, what we are going to do is we are going to look at least 2 of these incarnations and understand the purpose behind it, and look at anything else that's now remains in chapter 4 and following we go on to chapter 5.
5. Okay, that's good. That's good.
Okay.
So I'll just end this recording and thanks everybody, and yeah.